Welcome to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jesse Green, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Listen in each week as we bring you an inspiring person who will share their story, ideas and business techniques to help you create a practice and a life you love. And now introducing your host, Dr. Jesse Green.
Hi everyone, Jesse Green here. Welcome back to SavvyDentist.com and to the Savvy Dentist podcast, the show where great dentistry meets great business. My guest today is Steve Daley from Healthcare Finance. And Steve's going to be talking all about finance, but not just the nuts and bolts of finance, how to work with a professional, how to work with a broker, how to work with your accountant, how to work with your lawyer, how to work with your coach if you have one, so that you can pull that team together, get financial outcomes that make sense for you, for your family, and for your business as well. What I really like about Steve is his approach to working with people. He takes a 20-year long-term approach. He's about relationships, which really resonates with me because that's our work too. But what I really appreciate about Steve, as I said, is his approach, his thoughtfulness, his pragmatic nature, and his focus on getting outcomes. So in this conversation, we cover a wide range of things. You're going to want to have some pens and paper handy to take some great notes because he does cover a lot of good material. Now, if you are a dental practice owner, I'm going to invite you to take us up on our COVID Care Pack. Our COVID Care Pack contains access to interviews with accountants, with lawyers. We've put together some tools to assist you through this coronavirus situation so that your practice comes out the other side stronger, better, and ready for the upswing that will come, ready for the opportunities that will definitely arise. The COVID Care Pack is 100% free. All you need to do is head across to savvydentistacademy.com/SDA free to get access to it. So once again, that address, savvydentistacademy.com/SDA free to get access to the COVID Care Pack. Interviews, transcripts, tools, all those sorts of things designed to help you get through the coronavirus situation and position yourself for great things afterwards. Now, here's our conversation with Steve. As I said, do have a pen and paper handy because he does cover some wonderful pieces of learning that I know that will be helpful for you in your practice as well. I hope you enjoy this as much as I enjoyed talking to him. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to come and hang out with us on the Savvy Dentist podcast, mate. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you, Jesse, and thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mate, it was actually really good to get to talk to you because I've been receiving your emails now for as long as I can remember, and every time I read them I go, that's really clever, that's a really good insight, and you know, how good's that? So firstly, thank you for putting that together. It's a really good resource. Mate, you've been around the traps in finance for a while now, and you're obviously well known in the dental profession and beyond. I'm just wondering, just so our audience can get a bit of an understanding of your background, how did you find your way into finance, and in particular healthcare finance? Because it's a fairly niche kind of industry.
Sure. Well, I arrived in Australia 20 years ago and was working for a finance broking company, finding people in construction and manufacturing better loans from the major banks. Quickly escalated into medical. I really enjoyed the healthcare side of it. Did 4 years at Medfin, which was really good, and enjoyed that. Then a bit more time in broking. Then 5 years ago, I set up healthcare finance. Decided that it was time for me to follow my own advice. I've been telling clients for many years that they need to get out there and do it for themselves. And it was just the right time for me to step away from corporate, where I felt we were being driven more and more on revenue and numbers rather than caring for individual specific clients' needs. And I'm a great believer in bespoke, tailored scenarios that are responsibly entered into and properly built. You know.
I'll have to tell you, bespoke is the name of our dental practice. I didn't tell you that beforehand, but...
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. My apologies.
You don't need to apologise. I'm just going to say we're on the same page, buddy. That's exactly right. No need to apologise there. I'm thinking, yeah, this guy gets us. It's good. But that's exactly right. It's tailor-made and it's specific for that needs of the individual. And as you say, it's responsibly done. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about finance and so on and so forth because, you know, we're recording this at a time where there's been considerable financial upheaval in the dental space with the coronavirus and, of course, you know, the financial impacts of that. And there's a great saying, I think it's a Buffett saying, and I could be wrong, but whoever said it, when the tide goes out, you can see who's naked, basically. And the tide is going out, right? And we can see who's been naked. And one of the things, I was talking to one of my clients last night, and we're talking about that very thing. And we're talking about, the value of good financial habits to, hold people in good stead for when the tide does go out. Because the tide will come back in, but it will go out again, and there'll be other things in the future. So I'm just wondering if we could just start our conversation today by talking about financial habits, because you look at the numbers of goodness knows how many businesses, goodness knows how many people, and you would see trends, you would observe things, you would understand what makes things work or where things come unstuck. So I'm just wondering if you could just start off by telling us a bit about your view on good financial habits.
Sure. So if you think about it from anyone when they're entering into a business, well, no matter what sort of healthcare business it is, or it's a plumbing business, whatever it is, the main thing is we don't know what we don't know. Okay. And I like to have clients who, well, firstly, we're interested in having clients for 20 years. So we've got no interest in putting loans in people into loans and then have those people get into difficulty and fall out of business. So 3 things that each business should have, in my humble opinion, is a good trusted accountant who has got some specialty expertise in dental, because it is a specific sector. So a good dental accountant is really important. Secondly, a financial planner and insurance person. And if you can, you want that person to be the same person so you don't have to retell your story.
Yep.
That person will do your PI, but will also look after your super and your other investments and your investment properties and all that stuff. And also a good finance broker. Main thing to understand about banks these days is banks are there to sell you their product. The red bank can only sell you the red loan from the red shelf. Okay. Whereas a broker can normally talk to your planner and your accountant, and we will decide between us what we think is best for you, or a couple of options, and the client can decide. But importantly, what clients have done in taking that on is they've unloaded themselves with a lot of stress of things they don't know about. Your accountant is a hopeless dentist. As a finance broker, I'm a terrible dentist. It's just not what we studied. So if you've got a team around you who's got a vested interest in your success, you're quite likely going to get value out of the bill you pay every year.
Yeah.
And by the way, if your bill to your accountant is $99 a year, I might humbly suggest you need a change.
Yeah.
You don't run your car on the cheapest brakes and the cheapest tires and the cheapest seatbelts. These things will help everyone sleep better.
Why is it, do you think, and there's some other habits I'll talk about in a second, but just while we're on the concept or the thought around building a team around you, and I'm a big believer in team as well. I think if you can surround yourself with smart people, then, it's a really good risk mitigation strategy, right? But why is it that you think that some people will have a $99 accountant, and why do they balk at paying for advice? Why is it that people kind of do that stuff?
Look, I'm British, and we are, British clients, I just love them, but I know straight away they're going to try and negotiate with me like they're selling bananas in London market. And we can't help it. It is in our blood, the war years, rationing, whatever, for whatever reason. So the immediate response is usually to save money, because we think that's the most important thing. In reality, it could be that we're not quite sure of what, a different accountant might offer us for the money. And also, if we haven't been burned, we don't see the value.
Yeah.
If we haven't made a bad investment, or we haven't had uncomfortable questions from the tax office because we've been doing our BAS the wrong way around for 4 years, and then suddenly we've got a massive bill to pay. It's like everything. You don't need your seatbelts till you have a car crash.
Exactly.
And we just have to realize, well, where do we want our risk reduction? And it's personal choice.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
You then look at your tax bill. The other thing that promotes them is, I'm paying too much tax, I'll need a better accountant. But, a good accountant won't necessarily, or specifically will not, put you into tax schemes. They'll give you proper advice for structuring.
Yeah, totally. What's really interesting around that, actually, and just I haven't shared this with you, but I work with an accountant who I'm very happy with. But prior to that, I was working with an accountant who, they certainly weren't a $99 accountant. They were a full fee accounting firm, but they weren't giving me the advice that I needed. And I remember coming home from work one Friday, opening the mail and getting a letter from the ATO saying, please pay $140,000 in tax.
Ouch.
Yeah. And thankfully,
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I think I had a month or whatever it was to do it. And look, thankfully, we had screwed some money aside and all the rest of it, but it's not a letter you want to get, ladies and gents, I can tell you. And so, I really am a firm believer that our accountant and the fees that I pay him is an investment. I don't see it as an expense. I see it as an investment, and I see it as an investment in keeping me ahead of the curve, keeping me safe, helping me prosper and all those sorts of things. So I really believe that good advisors are essential, and it seems that you held that view as well.
Oh, look, and to be fair, I think perhaps those days are hopefully they're past, where you're getting charged for the senior partner's hourly rate, but the junior photocopying trainee is actually doing your work.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that is no longer there. Sadly, there is very little defense. So you do need someone who wants you as a 20-year client, and you do need someone where you take the time to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Mm.
I have had clients say to me, I do not know why this accountant has given me 3 trusts. And I go, neither do I.
Yeah.
Let's ask him. And then, perhaps there's an answer and perhaps there's not.
Yeah, exactly right.
So, each client has to take responsibility. But here's the interesting thing. If they're paying a little bit more for their accountancy, they pay better attention to it, they learn better, and they sleep better.
Yep.
Because they understand it. Oh, well, that's not too complicated now. And with a lot of the open source information from the tax office, and I mean, if you're suffering from insomnia, go and look at the ATO website on any one particular point.
Yeah.
And you'll get sent all over the places, different things refer to different parts of any particular act. And so it is really important. I like to stress to people, you spend all of this time and money in our boat to make our really nice journey, and then we're going to skimp and save on it. I don't think so.
Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit more about financial habits as well, Steve, because, obviously one of the financial habits that you see is, people that prosper have a good team around them. One of the things I've been surprised around is, with this particular situation is, when the tide going out, is the level of debt that some people are carrying. And of course, that's a really personal thing. I'm not here to make comment about how much debt should be held or whatever. But what's been really interesting is that when things go south, they tend to go south pretty quickly, right?
Yes.
The GFC came and it happened pretty quickly once Lehman Brothers collapsed. And then, of course, in this coronavirus thing, everything went south pretty quickly. So one of the things I've noticed is that there hasn't been a lot of contingency planning. And part of that is around, debt management, cash flow management, cash surpluses. Could you just speak to those points for a moment? Again, I know that it's a case-by-case thing. I get that everyone's going to have their own version of comfortable. But could you just give us a couple of guiding principles around that, please, mate?
Sure. Okay. So the main thing to remember is that if you got most of your debt from a bank, the bank gave you what you asked for. Okay. If you came to a broker like me, we would have bounced things off your financial planner and your accountant to make sure that it suits your scenario. Those guys will put in place appropriate risk mitigation tools for you, which could be anything from, hey, look, you realize this is on interest only, and it's at 100% finance, and, what's your plan for paying this off? Most of the bankers and all of the brokers now would do that with you as well. Where people have been surprised is it's historic debt that was given to them under usually different rules or given to them irresponsibly, which sadly, you only have to look at the fines with the major banks for see how many of those loans have been irresponsibly granted. So it's really interesting that suddenly the client wakes up and goes, oh my God, the sky's fallen in, what am I going to do? And sadly, there are lots of help packages there are about, but if you haven't got some spare cash or you can't sell part of your building to somebody, it can be really stressful. But again, this usually comes from when you took the loan out, you didn't get the advice. So, the problem is bad advice or no advice can become a growing problem that you're not aware of until the tide goes out.
Yeah, and when the tide goes out, it goes out quickly, as I said. So, one of the
and it ain't stopping for anyone, so.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see, it's really interesting. You can see, as they say, who's got no clothes on, who's in the nude once the tide goes out. One of the things I think, for the audience listening that I'd really encourage some people to think about as well is to have really good cash buffers. your contingency money if things goes a little bit awry.
Yeah.
I call it, peace of mind money, or rainy day bank account is the common phrase I use. And just again, putting some money aside.
It's really easy. I mean, if you set up any loan against a building, the bank will normally give you, depends on the bank, but will give you what's called an offset facility.
Yeah.
Where you basically can offset the interest and the money sits there and it's effectively yours. And if your loan was written at 4%, you're getting credit for every dollar that's in there at 4%.
Yeah.
And that's non-taxable. So in order to earn 4%, you'd have to earn 7, pay tax on it to get 4.
Yeah.
So your offset on your own building that you're in, which is bricks and mortar, is, and that's always been available, but people don't take it because it's, well...
Why do you think?
Again, the bankers give the clients what the clients ask for.
Yeah, okay.
So if you don't ask for car mats in your Merc, you don't get car mats.
Yeah.
And again, if they haven't been advised or they're not sure, and this is in, I do a lot of work in not only in dental, but in all sorts of healthcare, so doctors, dentists, surgeons, vets. No one has really thought about, well, do I need an emergency parachute?
No.
But
that surprises me, Steve. Why? Seriously, one of my first things is, what's my get out of jail free card here? And that surprises me that people don't think about that. So, ladies and gents, if you're listening to this podcast, I know that I'm recording this at a time where maybe, this is the horse is bolted perhaps in some cases, but there will be a recovery and there will be other things that occur down the track where the tide goes out again. So when things are good, I think you've always got to squirrel a bit of money away, whether it's into an offset or to have the parachute. You want to have something to be able to give you that cushion if you need it.
And look, at the moment, cash flow is king. Okay, so I've got clients who literally, we can do 3 and 4% loans for them, and they're not sure because they've saved 3 or 4% in interest by paying cash for a bunch of kit in the last 3 months.
Mm.
And I can give them their money back tomorrow. In fact, any bank can, so not just me. They can go to the bank, go, there's the invoices. Can I have a sale and hire back loan on this equipment or this car or whatever it is? And as long as the invoices are less than 90 days old or 6 months in some circumstances, they can have their money back tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then they'll pay interest on it. Well, which is deductible. How cheap do they want their bananas? It is, the stuff, we're not paying 18% like the
80s.
The 80s. It really, and people say, I don't like debt. Well, that's fine. How much do you like 2-minute noodles? Because that's what you'll be eating if you run out of cash flow. Because don't forget, businesses only run out of cash flow once.
Mate, that you are singing from a song sheet that I love, and that is the cash flow hymn sheet, which I think should be sung by every choir in town. But cash flow is everything. And again, taking from the business perspective, the way I see this, Steve, is there's really kind of 4 phases of wealth creation. You've got to earn the money, save the money, hopefully invest some money, and then ultimately enjoy the money, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to earn it first. You've got to be able to generate that cash flow. You've got to have a business, in our case, a dental practice, that throws off surplus cash flow. You've got to be a good steward of that money, have those good financial habits, surround yourself with a good team, use finance appropriately, making sure that it's fit for purpose, not just, going to get the red loan from the red bank off the red shelf. And you're doing that really well. So I think that's, again, some really interesting things there. And again, it's not rocket science, but it's just doing those fundamental things, day in, day out, focusing on those things. And you might have heard of a guy called Jim Rohn, who's a speaker from America years ago. And again, I was talking to my mate on the phone last night, a client of mine, and we were talking about this quote: you either suffer the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, right? And what I'm hearing you say is having some financial discipline, having some good advice is going to alleviate the pain of regret down the track. And again, what I think now is that as the tide goes out, there's some people who are probably suffering a bit of pain of regret. So let's not labor that too much, but again, let's get into some good habits.
And look, I want to make this point. Nobody should feel embarrassed or foolish about this. The whole system was set up to just really give people what they ask for at the counter.
Yep, totally.
And the whole of the Banking Royal Commission about bad behaviours and sales-driven targets where, and including some places where I've been employed, we were just hammered every Monday morning. Your job is to get X amount of dollars lent to someone this month.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, you'll be looking for a new job.
Wow.
And if you complain, you'll never work in banking again. And, and they were the sales cultures because that was the benchmark of success. And anyone who asked any questions was roundly criticized or managed out of the business.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm pleased to see that the corporates have now been fined for some of those behaviors and things have changed. But again, this is why I set up this business, because I wanted 20-year clients who I could nurture and look after, who I'd gone on with and I liked and I cared about, and to be able to pick and choose. And where then the clients liked me. I'm not the right fit for everybody, and that's fine.
I get that.
But I think in this time, if we can sort of help people have some altitude on perhaps, things that or advice they could have got, then it sort of helps. As I say, no one should feel responsible or like it's completely there for the situation they're in, because the system is set up really based on a dollar reward scenario, and that's how debt works,
Yeah, totally. I second that.
You can't measure client happiness on an Excel spreadsheet that's got profit on it. Where's the client happiness column? Oh,
yeah. Exactly. And well, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about past recessions, because I've got a fair bit of grey hair, and I've been through a couple of recessions. I graduated as a dentist into the recession of the 1990s. We've had a few things, in terms of shocks and challenges to the economy in my practicing life. And, you don't have as much grey hair as me, but I reckon you've been around the block once or twice as well. So I wanted to ask you, from your experience, what are the lessons that come out of difficult economies? Where do you, looking for the learnings, looking for the lessons, looking for the silver linings, what do you see? What have you seen? And what do you think are the things that people should keep an eye on?
Look, many people know that I'm a big Liverpool football fan because I was born in Liverpool in England. And I left school in Margaret Thatcher's years, where she was, there was time of radical change, and lots of, whole cities and areas were targeted by the government for, a different way of believing about things.
Mm-hmm. Was that the miners' strikes and all the rest of it?
Yeah, the miners' strikes and the riots and, 50% unemployment and
wow,
just really awful times in the 80s. So the point is, it bounces back.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, let's look at what's happening at the moment. Have we had a scenario where everybody is now suddenly on March the 1st got perfect teeth and no one will ever need to see a dentist again? No. Are we in a scenario where the dentists are on hold for the moment? Yes, we are. Well, that's fine. Here's an interesting point. Can your patients go anywhere else? So it's not like you're closed and your patients are all squirreling away. So with this comes a great opportunity, which is almost like somebody stopped the clock on the world. And your bank's giving you you can ask for it, and you'll probably be granted the stop on all of your payments. So you've got the next few weeks as a free hit to really look at your business.
Yeah.
And go, do you know what? Who do I need around me? I'll ask Jesse. We'll instruct Jesse. We've got some money from the government. We'll put some money aside. We'll do some budgeting. I'm going to have a better accountant, or I'm going to make my accountant work harder. I'm going to get some planning. I'm going to do some marketing. I'm going to do a refresh. We'll get the fit-out boys in to do a refresh. I'll negotiate with my landlord. And basically, I'll just focus on my business. But I won't have to do it myself, because I'm going to sit down with my advisors. And at the end of this time, I won't have lost a single patient, really, because those patients can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm now then, as soon as we open the doors, I'm now in so much better of a position to march forward. And I will have done a complete audit of my whole business and practice. And when we start up, every single one of my staff members is going to be really keen to be back out work. So there's lots of positives out this, and it's really a great chance to have a clean slate where you can basically almost rewrite the rules. And the answer is, I've had a huge amount of soul searching. It's cost me a lot of money to close down. We still have to pay the rent. We're paying all the salaries, but what we're going to do is we're going to change the way things happen. And I need you all to be on board. And I'm doing this at home with my wife and my team, and I'll change myself in the way that I think about things. because in this time of global change, if we do not keep up, we will be out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a message that every team member could get on board with. And by the way, that's the conversation you want with your accountant and your broker and your financial planner.
Yeah. And just to say it out loud as well, if you're getting coached by someone, that's the conversation you want to be having with them too. And
if you're not getting coached, you should be, because everybody needs coaching. Everyone needed coaching before the 1st of March.
Yeah.
And I would say to everyone, look, they owe it to themselves, and if they're not sure, come up with a budget, come up with $1 and spend the dollars with you. And then, Jesse, I'm not putting it back on you, but maybe they write a check to you and go, right, prove to me within this amount.
Yeah, look, I think, and whether the people come to me or find someone else, it doesn't really matter. I think they've just got to get someone to be able to look at what they're doing, because I think it was Tiger Woods that said, I can't see myself swing. And so I need someone who's got that objective look. So whether it's me, whether it's someone else, doesn't really matter, as long as you're getting an external perspective. And that should be whoever is your coach should be working with your finance broker, should be working with your accountant to help you to create that team of advisors to help you and your business move forward. And you've got that, it's almost like a board of advisors, which I think is where it all works out.
And here's the thing that the dentist, should pat themselves on the back and give themselves tickets on. You are paying the bill. If your 3 advisors and your coach are not playing nicely in the sandpit,
get new ones,
beat them with a stick, kick them out. But do you know what I mean? Yeah. You're paying the bill. Totally. So you absolutely have the right to demand the excellence that you need. As practice owners and business owners, we have a responsibility to our community and to our people and to our staff to keep the ship off the rocks.
Yeah.
And if the cabin boy is misbehaving or is not on duty, it's appropriate to speak to him about changes in perspective, as one of my old bosses used to say.
Yeah. Walk the plank.
The end of the plank is a different perspective. So
it sure is. It sure is.
I can see loads from over here.
Yeah.
So overall, it's a time of great opportunity. The fundamentals of the dental businesses have not changed. The skill set hasn't been evaporated. No. It didn't get exported. There's now a pent-up demand where when the doors open again, it's going to be the most prepared who are going to do the best.
Oh, thank you, mate.
And if you get a stack of patients who are price shopping you or whatever, send them somewhere else.
Yep.
We cannot offer literally life-saving medical treatment or dental treatment at the bargain basement discounted prices once the doors open. And look, interestingly enough, as a weird byproduct, the whole of the population is now becoming more and more educated, if only by Google and the news, about infection control.
Yes.
Well, what a great story to tell to your patients who are now going to be more educated about the infection control. Hey, this is why we've done our new fit out, or this is how we've trained our staff, or this is how we are keeping you safe. And so it's all about looking for the silver lining. And I genuinely see it for lots of dentists as a really good free hit to do all the stuff they've never had time to do.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000,000 trillion% on that. And that's certainly the work that we've been putting in as well. Is we've been saying, over the next however many weeks this lasts is, obviously manage cash flow, actively retain your patients, actively engage and train your team, actively build out your processes and systems that you haven't had time to do, and all those other sorts of things. But what I really resonated with what you said, and I just want to come back because I think it's an important point that I just want to emphasize it is the practices that are best prepared for when things do reopen that are going to do well. And you don't want to be like using the Melbourne Cup as a metaphor. You want to, when the barrier opens, you want to be running out of there pretty hard and fast. You don't want to be that horse stuck in the barriers, kind of wondering what just happened and what do I do now? And so I think you've got to use this time productively. And, while I'm sure that there'll be some people who use it to have a bit of a rest, and there's nothing wrong with that, to recharge the batteries.
Spend time with your kids as well.
Spend time with your kids. That's part of the whole thing. A bit of self-care and a bit of recharging is absolutely essential, and also get prepared for when it does open.
And look, we're not allowed to go on holiday. We can't cross any state borders. So you have to spend time at home with your kids.
Yep.
But, just enjoy the time but do communicate with your patients.
Totally.
And let's not forget that when we're talking about infection control and things like that, dentists know more than their average patient anyway. And their average patient is being educated by Google and the news.
Yep.
So there's actually quite a bit of factual stuff that you can put out around what you're doing in your practice that is of value then to your patients and increases your currency in your patient's mind.
I absolutely think that that's true. And we ran some training the other day about content that engages the patient base, really. And, there's a method that we described in that. But I totally think one of the topics that should be discussed is the infection control policies and procedures that you have in place. And you can easily do that with a little video. You can do all of those sorts of things, send it out to your patients. And again, that just reassures them, lets them know that you're actually up to date with all this stuff, because we all know that we're up to date, but patients might not, right? We assume that they know, right?
And even if you see where patients are tripping over things or buying, ridiculous hand sanitizer that doesn't work on eBay, right? Because there's a lot of that about.
Yeah.
How good is it for your dentist to say, make sure that the label says it's a particular specification or it's a particular percent of alcohol or whatever and forgive me, I'm not humble finance monkey, so whatever the line in the sand is where it's useful.
Yeah.
That's a great message. Stop buying rubbish stuff off eBay.
That's a good message at the best of times, but especially with hand sanitizer.
Well, what are you doing then? You're probably taking more risks because you've got a false sense of security. So you go to Woolworths 8 times a week and then you get sick and then you go and take it home to your family and your grandma.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Or somebody else's grandma.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah. So, Steve, firstly, I want to say thank you to you for taking the time out of your day to come and hang with us. It's been a lot of fun. But I do want to ask you one last question because
sure.
I think this is really important. If you were to be able to tap someone on the shoulder, kind of peer over their shoulder, look into their world for a little bit, tap on their shoulder and say, hey, this is what I think you really need to know. What would be the wisdom, according to Steve, when it comes to finance, when it comes to all these things? What's the one little kernel that you just want to leave people with?
Gee whiz, that's a question without notice.
Yeah, sorry. I put you on the spot, didn't I?
That's all right. For me, it's pick someone you like.
Yep.
Okay? Really, and if you're not sure, pick 3 people you like. So your broker, your accountant, and your financial planner, and you're unlikely to get all 3 wrong.
Yep.
And if they've got the same ethics as me and you, Jesse, or we're the same sort of people where we pretty much wear our hearts on our sleeve, which gets me into trouble sometimes.
Me too, mate, all the time. All the time.
Really, you can't say that? Oh, really? Well, anyway, then you're going to get a genuine sort of response.
Yeah.
And if you like them, they will like you. And then the care comes into it about you care about each other's businesses and well-being.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do much better than focusing on who's got the cheapest seatbelts in the market. I'll leave you with this. I love this analogy. You can buy the cheapest parachute from the internet and it will live up to the guarantee. You will get to enjoy it for the rest of your life, but the details in the small print.
Yeah. Love that. That's awesome. That's really good. I'm going to leave you with one that one of my mates always tells me this metaphor. His name's Tyson, so I've got to give credit here. The story of 2 hairdressers, and one's selling haircuts for $20, and the neighbor sets up and says, "We sell haircuts for $15." And then the first guy goes, "Oh, okay, well haircuts for $10." And then the second guy goes, "Haircuts for $5." And then all of a sudden, the first guy gets jack of that and says, "Okay, we fix $5 haircuts." That's his new slogan.
Yeah,
so,
$35.
Exactly. So
what a pleasure. Look, I hope in some way I've been able to make your listeners feel a bit more in control. It certainly is within everyone's reach to feel better and to ask for help.
And
I think in this environment, everyone is genuinely trying to help each dental business stay in business.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And, I suppose that really is the key, is so many people feel they're alone and, oh my goodness, what has happened? And there's self-blaming going on, which isn't helpful nor deserved. People really should be able to reach out and just say, hey, listen, what do you think I should do here? And then once you've got a team around you and you're paying the bills, you'll be amazed how much you get done. And then you start looking at your new project of, I'm going to reinvent this practice now, and I'm going to change things, and I'm going to chuck out all the stuff that's ever not been good enough here.
Totally. And just to pick up your point, mate, I think the greatest leverage point that we can talk about there is build that team of advisors, get your accountant, your finance broker, your financial plan, all that together, assemble that team, because that is absolutely a force multiplier. It's a real leverage point and it's an accelerator. So again, I really like your message on that. Steve, you've been really generous, not just with your time today, but also generous with your knowledge in all that you share. And as I said, I've received your emails now for a long time, and I always read them and I enjoy them, and it's good.
I hope we're not snowing you under.
No, it's good. I read them and I appreciate them, and I appreciate all the work that you do to support not just the dental profession, but the healthcare world in general. And if people want to find out where you are, mate, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Healthcarefinance.com.au is the website.
Yep.
Or just give me a buzz on the mobile. I'll always answer the phone. I should just ask that I get a real buzz out of, I was never smart enough to qualify as a doctor or a dentist. And I get a real buzz out of helping people have the best kit so that they can help the general public. If it was my grandma getting treated in a hospital or in a dental practice or whatever it was, I would want to make sure that she had the best equipment in the world available.
Mm-hmm.
And I really get a kick out of being a small cog in helping you guys, provide that excellent frontline service. I really take my hat off to all of you guys.
Yeah, thanks, mate. That's really lovely. And I know that, as I shared with you offline, I've had lots of feedback about the help and support you've provided people over the years. So thank you for all you do, mate. I appreciate it a great deal.
Thank you for having me on because I'm really pleased to in some small way, being able to help it and a much broader audience than I could get to. So thanks, Jesse.
Pleasure, mate.
I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Good to talk, mate, and we'll catch up shortly.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jesse Green. For more free tools and resources, join the free Facebook group. Visit drjessegreen.com/Facebook. And for more episodes, visit drjessegreen.com/savvydentist.